All right. I'm also going to record this. You know what? I wish I knew. Let me see really quickly. Let me see if this would work. I don't know if it will. Because I wish I knew how to live stream on Rumble at the same time. But clearly, I don't know how. Um, I just don't know how to do this. I don't know what this is wanting me to do. Okay. I guess I can do this. Oh, okay. Maybe that'll work. Okay. Need to type. Okay. Okay. I'll figure it out. Okay. So this is there nothing for politics? So we'll just do this podcast. And, well, let's do it this way. News. Would it be education? Yeah, we'll call it education. Okay. See, okay. So we're just gonna have to wait a minute while this is processing. Man. Okay. I was thinking maybe I'll just stop the live stream and start it back over, but I don't know. I probably will. In the meantime, while we're waiting for this, um, last time I tried to live stream on Rumble, it was like, it was really weird. I don't know. And it wouldn't let me do it. So while we're waiting, I know I had a podcast that is going up or just went up at 9. And so that one's up now. And speaking of the first story that I was discussing was the illegal immigrant that killed 5 people, 5 Hondurans in Texas, and he escaped and they lost him. Um, one of the newer updates is that he was actually deported 3 different times and still came back across the border and had our government uh, had allowed border patrol and given them enough men and resources to properly protect our border, these 5 people might still be alive. So I blame the government on that. And not just Biden. There's a lot of people to blame for that. So we'll see. Okay, why is this? Oh, why is this taking so long? I don't understand why this is taking so long. Okay, well, if you want to come back and join the live stream when this is done, feel free. Um, for now, I might go and listen to some music while we wait. I got a warning for what? Your content was removed due to a violation of our community guidelines because it's the first time your account isn't affected. You're only warned once, and this warning will remain on your channel. Oh my God, they removed one from September 1st, 2021. Wow. Oh, this is an old warning. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. But uh, that's weird. I haven't seen that before. I haven't seen that before. Okay. So let's go here. See what's going on here. Oh, is it ready? Am I live? It says I'm live. Okay. Well, then let's go here really quick and share on Rumble or on Twitter to join me on Rumble. I'll probably get taken off of YouTube. Okay. And then I wanted to record. Oh, I guess I don't need to record it now because I'm live. Okay, cool. All right. So I don't need to do that then. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about is the title, the World Economic Forum, of course, is the first thing that I was bringing up. And so I came across this several weeks ago, and I had saved it to my phone so that I could discuss it one day on a podcast. And I completely forgot about it until I came across it last night. I'm not live, am I? Am I live? I don't know. How do I know if this is live? Should that be red? I don't know. Can we try this? Let's try this. So it still says upcoming. Okay, so it's not live yet. Dang it. All right, well, I guess we're going to wait just a little bit longer. And we'll chat back in and see when that's live. I should have figured that out before I came on here, truly. Okay. This sucks. All right. Well, I mean, like I said, we can listen to music, but I want to listen to my music. Where's my music at? There we go. Let's listen to 90s country while we wait. I don't know this. Six lanes, red and fortune to the night. I disappear to the left and right again. Another supper from a sack, a 99-cent heart attack. Got a pounding head and an aching back, and the camel is buried in a big saw stack. I'm gonna live where the green grass grows, watching my corn pop up in rows. Every night be tucked in close to you. Raise our kids where the good Lord's blessed, point our rocking chairs towards the west. Plant our dreams where the peaceful river flows. Green grass grows. Well, I'm from a map dot, a stop sign on a flat top. I got the first I get hot from there. But all of this glitter is a getting dark. There's concrete growing in the city park. I don't know who my neighbors are, and there's bars on the corners and bars on the heart. I'm gonna live where the green grass grows, watching my corn pop up in rows. Every night, be tucked in close to you. Raise our kids where the good Lord's blessed, point our rocking chairs towards the west, and plant our dreams where the peaceful river flows, where the green grass grows. I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing something to make this work. I'm gonna live where the green grass grows, watching my corn pop up in rows. Okay, how do I pause this? Okay, so you know what? We're just gonna go because I don't know. I'm tired of waiting on it. I don't know if it's because I don't have a camera hooked up, but I would think that it would be just like YouTube, where if there's not a camera, you can still go live. So I don't know. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Um, all right, the WEF, the World Economic Forum, the role of faith in systemic global challenges. Now I have briefly skimmed through this, but like I said, I thought it was important, and I'm gonna go ahead and record this since I don't have Rumble up live. I'll go ahead and do that so I can put it on Rumble later. Okay, so this came across a couple of weeks ago. Someone else was talking about it. Now, this is from June 2016, and I'm just now hearing about it. I don't know if other people have heard about it. I don't know. It's very possible that other people have heard about it. I'm just making sure this isn't live yet. Okay. So I wanted to talk about this because, this has to do with, making us a one world government, the Great Reset. Um, anyway, so I wanted to skim through it and take a look at a couple things. I wanted to read the foreword, and then kind of go through some of this stuff. I'm not going to read it all word for word, but just kind of skim through it and show you exactly what it is that the World Economic Forum is doing and what they think about us people that claim to be Christians or religious. The World Economic Forum recognizes that faith plays a dynamic and evolving role in society. Demographic trends suggest the number of faith adherents will increase over the next 2 decades, while the secular population will decrease. People of faith, therefore, have profound impacts on community mobilizing for both productive and damaging purposes. The power of faith to impact global issues and shape global perspectives is a fundamental reason why the forum consistently engages faith leaders and perspectives in our work. As part of our efforts to incorporate an understanding of the impact of faith in our analysis of complex global trends and challenges, the forum established the Global Agenda Council on the role of faith. Council members comprise the world's foremost experts to provide thought leadership that furthers the faith agenda within forum's activities. So, I don't know who these faith leaders are. It's probably like your Joel Osteens and your TD Jakeses of the world. And I don't trust them. And I don't answer to a global agenda council. I don't answer to anybody but God. Um, that's kind of like, that's over that, how you have the Southern Baptist Convention where all the Southern Baptist churches are under that council and they can excommunicate you, they can kick a whole entire church out of the convention. But as far as like where I go to an independent fundamental Baptist church. So we don't answer to anybody. It is our church, our tithes and offerings pay for the electricity, the cleaning of the church, which we do that ourselves. We don't hire anybody. The water, it pays the pastor because that's his full-time job. He doesn't do any other type of work. He's a full-time pastor, so that supports his family. We support our associate pastor and his family, who also works at the Christian school for the church. So, I mean, we're our own organization there, and we all, it's checks and balances. You have deacons, you have the pastor, then you have the members of the church. So I don't like this whole, making a council that it feels like you're going to say that churches and religious communities are going to have to answer to the World Economic Forum about things. Continuing on. Over its most recent 2-year term, the Council worked to raise awareness about socio-cultural, cross-faith, and religious engagement efforts for the purposes of conflict prevention and societal transformation. The Council aimed to transform perspectives on faith in government and the private sector, specifically in nations experiencing dramatic change. This compilation of thought pieces represents a portion of the important contributions generated by the Global Agenda Council on the role of faith during its 2014-2016 term. Most of these pieces were published as blogs on the forum agenda during the Council's period. In this document, the Council has provided important insights into faith's role in key global challenges identified by the World Economic Forum as a starting point for broader conversations on these critical issues. So the World Economic Forum is going to decide what global challenges are the most important to address. I would say the most important challenge for any Christian would be to share the gospel and, help people come to Jesus. That is our most important mission. It's the most important thing we face today because, our world is going to hell in a handbasket as we speak. And it is on a downhill slide. The brakes have been cut and there is no stopping this train. Okay, so I don't know if I really need to read the introduction, but I might just read a couple things of it. From climate change to gender parity, the World Economic Forum has identified critical global systemic challenges that require collaboration across different sectors. Understanding the dynamic role faith has in tackling each is the aim of this set of articles. Why is it important to understand the role of faith? First, to address global and systemic challenges requires not only innovation in policy and practice, but also a commitment to certain values that make the needed policy, economic, and social changes sustainable. And values are often rooted in faith. World Economic Forum founder and executive chairman, Professor Klaus Schwab, the evil one, I would say, speaking to the Global Agenda Council on the role of faith, concluded that values cannot be justified by the intellectual process alone, and that faith must be involved. See, because I know people are religious in one way or another. Everybody is religious. It just depends on what religion you're practicing. Your self worship, your Satanism, Christianity. It just depends. And by the way, Christianity, it's not a religion. Anybody can be a Christian that gets saved no matter what religion you come from. But I don't trust anything that Klaus Schwab says. I mean, he's like one of the evil geniuses from a cartoon, like, what's his name from Despicable Me? Like that little evil genius, the creepy one. Okay. Indeed, faith, including the religious institutions and beliefs that sustain faith, offer a deep spring of values that provide a moral and ethical basis for long-term commitments and actions in support of addressing the challenges. As a case in point, Pope Francis's 2015 papal encyclical on climate change, Laudato Si, on care for our common home, drew global interest and acclamation for its connection of values to practical action for the protection and stewardship of our planet. In fact, when he spoke at the United Nations General Assembly in September 2015, soon after its release, the eyes of all at this world body looked to him for moral leadership on his critical global challenge. I don't look to the Pope for moral leadership, not only because I'm not a Catholic, because he's a false teacher. So I don't look to any popes. That don't mean that they might not have beliefs that I agree with. You know how the most recent pope came out against, I think it was abortion and the gender identity stuff, and I agree with him on that. But fundamentally, I do not agree with him on anything in life because he's a false teacher. And the thing that really bothers me is these people that are in the religion of self-worship. It's the you-centered religion. What bothers me is they want to put nature and the globe above humans. And that is not how God arranged it. God gave humans dominion over the planet, the fish, the animals, all of it. And to act like that is more important than humans is, it's unbiblical, for one. And it really bothers me because you have women over here decrying that they've lost the right to kill their unborn babies. But, oh my God, you have to save the hoot owl. Oh my God, you have to save this endangered species of an animal. So that animal is more important than a human child? It is so backward. It's ridiculous. Second, faith and faith communities can be part of the solution to each global challenge, as well as provide helpful perspective on the issues. Alternatively, faith can also contribute to some of the underlying problems as outlined in the two-page fact sheet prepared for the World Economic Forum annual meeting 2016 in Davos, herein and distributed to top leaders, including Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at a civil society briefing he specifically requested. I guess I'm going to go ahead and read the whole introduction, then we'll skim through the rest. Third, as highlighted in the article, quote, religion holds women back, or does it, end quote. An important factor that facilitates the positive contributions of faith is, quote, freedom of religion or belief, end quote. When societies protect and respect the freedom of people to have a faith, change their faith, or have no faith, many of the problems noted in the two-page fact sheet are mitigated and or moved to the solutions column. Indeed, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights recognizes that the aspiration for freedom of religion or belief is more than just an incidental part of the human experience, but one that is intrinsic to human nature and a basic social good. Indeed, as the article on women demonstrates, freedom in the area of faith contributes to the well-being of women as it helps overcome coercive extremism and prejudice. Moreover, research finds that religious freedom leads to more prosperous and innovative societies. Indeed, nearly all of the pillars of the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Index are stronger for countries where respect for freedom of religion or belief is also high. Fourth, faith is on the rise as a global force. In fact, corporate consultant and former IMB executive Ted Childs, who is not a faith adherent, believes faith is the next big issue corporations will need to grapple with. In a similar way, they have had to address issues related to LGBT communities. For some living in more secular societies, this may be hard to believe, especially if faith is not a regular part of their life. But this is a potential blind spot because research shows that 84% of the world's people are affiliated with one faith or another. Research carried out for the Global Agenda Council on the role of faith found that not only are religious populations outgrowing non-religious populations, but the world is becoming more religiously diverse with economic consequences. These factors ensure that faith will remain an important factor that shapes values and markets in this generation and the next. My question is, what faith are you getting your moral values from? Are you getting it from the Quran, who talks about beheading infidels? Or are you getting it from Bible, and that gives us out, not just the 10 Commandments, but all of our moral guidelines, which, by the way, all of the moral guidelines that we have, the laws that have been made since the beginning of our country, were based on the fact that they were making them align biblically. That's why we have the moral laws we have, is because of the Christian faith of our founding fathers. But people want to say that they weren't Christian. And I know that there were some in there that were not Christian, but a lot of them were. However, the ones that weren't Christian still saw a need to form a society on biblical morality. Imagine that. Continuing on, through the following articles, I invite you to explore how faith communities not only promote values that help address global systemic challenges, but also how they carry out millions of social and economic projects that put to practice those values. And then it says to see, can faith make economic growth more fair? Indeed, faith groups not only have massive poverty alleviation projects worldwide, but they also have sophisticated think tanks and advocacy arms that take up causes related in one way or another to each of the global challenges. And finally, in addition to the articles highlighted here, you can see a full list of and links to the resources authored by the members. Okay, blah, blah, blah. That was from Brian Grimm. So, let me see. I got a message from my dad, so I have to answer it really quick. Sorry about that. Okay. Next page. What faith can do for global systemic challenges? Chris Seipel, is that how you say that? President Emeritus and Chairman of the Board at the Institute for Global Engagement. Okay. So right here, we see this graph here, the 80 years of global religious change from 1970, 2010, and 2050. So now they're predicting into the future. In 1970, it looks like, what is that, 1.23 million? Is that million? Yeah. So it says here, this is Pew Research Center's Future of World Religions. Other religions include religious traditions not covered elsewhere in this report that do not have sufficient data to have their own category across all country censuses and surveys. Jews numbered about 13 million in 1970, 14 million in 2010, and are expected to be about 16 million in 2050. So this is the global population by religious groups in billions. So in 1970, we had 1.23 billion Christians. In 2010, we had 2.17 billion Christians. And they're predicting that in 2050, we're going to have 2.92 billion Christians. But those numbers are actually kind of off, because most people that profess to be Christians are not actually born again Christians. They have never been saved. They're claiming a cultural Christianity title. And so they're not actually Christians. So these numbers are really, really much, much lower. Values are often rooted in faith, and if 84% of the world believes in something greater than itself, it stands to reason that the faith factor will influence and impact global systemic challenges. issues which the World Economic Forum has identified as vital for global collaboration. I doubt this is live yet. Of course it's not. I was trying to go live on Rumble, and I don't know how. Okay. So different faith traditions, despite different points of departure, can contribute to a common ethical and explanatory framework to make sense of the 21st century's dizzying change. Faith communities can also represent a key ingredient to a flourishing society. Possessing the wisdom of a long memory, as well as the desire to do the right thing by future generations, faith communities have always contributed to an intergenerational common good. So, about here, where he was talking about faith communities representing the key ingredient to a flourishing society. It was once said of our nation that it was only made for a moral people. And you see how easily our country is falling apart because of all the immorality that is going on, calling good evil and evil good. We're not meant for that type of behavior. And so it starts to fall apart, and it will not hold itself together unless we go back to being a moral, just people. In the present, as innovation races through industries, faith communities can act as a moral bulwark against the corruption that comes with the lack of legal framework. Anticipating the future, faith communities can also serve as an early warning system towards unethical behavior. This capacity to act as a moral reference point is essential to the conversation about what a global society wants to become. Faith communities are also de facto trust networks. They can transcend divides, validating or invalidating different approaches to the common good. As such, they are also natural distribution networks. Malaria was reduced in Nigeria once Muslims and Christians agreed to fight the same mosquitoes through the distribution of nets that were biting the Muslims on Friday and the Christians on Sunday. With all these influences combined, and despite the challenges of extremism, the faith factor will play a significant role in social cohesion and therefore political stability. And without stability, there is no opportunity to meaningfully address global changes. Okay, so that's what we have here. Now, this is just breaking down the different issues, right? Man, my mouth is so dry, probably because I just talked too much. So, this is the different issues. You have food security and agriculture, economic growth and social inclusion, employment, skills, and human capital. Because mind you, we're only human capital, right? Environment and natural resource security, future of the global financial system, future of the internet, gender parity, international trade and investment, and long-term investing infrastructure and development. So, right here, gender parity. I want to do that one because right now we're facing a big thing with the gender stuff, right? So it says religion, we must say, has been a part of the problem on this issue, too often validating inequality, even gender-based violence. First of all, there is no Christian who supports gender-based violence, okay? A true Christian does not support that. Now, that does not mean we are pacifist and that we won't defend ourselves or even defend our country when necessary, but we're not just inclined to violence, and we don't support people being violent for no reason. I know I've heard Steven Crowder say many times that violence is neither good nor bad. It's neutral, and it's how you engage in a violent behavior of whether or not it's for good or for bad. So beating your wife would be bad violence, but shooting someone who's coming in and trying to kill your family, that is good violence. So, it just bothers me that they seem to think that Christians are just these immoral people, and that, the men control their wives, and basically like dom and subculture, where you have your dominant and your submissive, and like a 50 Shades of Grey type of thing. Christians are not like that, okay? So it really bothers me. Anyway, moving on. Nevertheless, as a function of their faith, female leaders are bringing their beliefs to bear in how they envision, prepare for, and execute their professional roles across society. There is emerging evidence that where there is more religious freedom, for example, there is more women's empowerment. So I don't believe that women should be in leadership positions in the church. I just don't believe it. The Bible is against it. And churches are meant to be led by male pastors and male deacons. Now, women, they can't teach Sunday school. They can, like, we have ladies' meetings at our church every fourth Monday where, the women will do like a lesson or give a devotional, but it's just women. But it is not right and it is not biblical for a woman to stand up at the front of the church and preach to men and women both. It is not right. So, and we don't have any women in leadership in our church, but that does not make them any less important to the church, because a lot of things get done in that church because of us women that are there. The cleaning, the cooking for when we have get-togethers and fellowships. So that church would not survive without its women, just like it will not survive without its men. So that's one thing that bothers me. Now, I don't know, as the future of the internet, it says that it has provided a new form of media for faith to be expressed and channeled in contemporary society. Religious leaders are now communicating far beyond their traditional quote unquote flock to present values and concerns to a global audience. Through networks like Facebook, new international norms are now being established to determine acceptable forms of behavior and activities. Social media has also become a powerful tool for mobilizing positive faith-based values as a response to destructive events and activities. Meanwhile, the linguistic opportunity to cross boundaries is increasingly available for the most underrepresented minority language groups in the world. And actually, the biggest problem with the internet is when the false religions are getting to everybody more frequently than the true gospel. Like your prosperity gospel, where if you just have enough faith and you ask God to give you this, well then He has to give it to you no matter what. That's not true. That's your prosperity gospel. And then you have your man-centered gospel, where you are always in the middle of the story instead of God being the center of it. And that's where you would get like Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, Joyce Meyer discussing. By the way, I got to pull it up because I want to know if I'm crazy or not. I want to know if anybody else thinks that Joyce Meyer looks like the Joker. I mean, come on. Can we, fix that? Let me find one of her really weird ones. I don't know. Maybe this is one of the better ones. I mean, her mouth is like the Joker's mouth. Is it not? It's so creepy. She's creepy. There was one, it's one of her newer pictures, and it was like the most creepy picture I had ever seen. And maybe it's the way she does her lipstick. I don't know. But yeah. To me, she looks like the Joker in her mouth. Especially when she doesn't smile. I mean, it looks like she's had like lip fillers or something. I don't know. She's done something. Anyway, I just thought that it was weird because she looks like the Joker to me. See, because look what she used to look like. Her mouth was normal, and now it's Jokerish like. It's so weird. Anyway, continuing on. Next page. So the role of faith in addressing key global challenges. Now, this is this is the one where it really gets me, because we're going to have to look at all of this. So we're given the solution, the problem, and the perspective, okay? And this is where they say what the role of faith is supposed to be, okay? So, economic growth and social inclusion. You have social and ethical capital, hospitality and engagement for the local society, urban networks for social cohesion, teaching on caring for others, global communities and solidarity, countering economic fundamentalism by asking critical questions like what are the true indicators of economic growth? How does it affect poor people's life? What are the costs of ecosystems? Countering the market, is that the, I'm sorry, the market is marketization. Oh my god, I need to go back to English. Countering the marketization of human society by a reminder of higher values, strong ethics of work, valuing the past and what is to come, temporal inclusion, not short-termism. The problem is sectarianism, unwillingness to change, conservation of social differences and or separation, denial of the value of this life and focus on the next. It's my understanding that the left has the least bit of value on this life because they like to murder their babies and not even give them a this life to value. So the perspective is critique of unlimited growth based on justice and equality, long-term memory, creation-oriented worldview, liaison with states on corruption, political stability, and focus on just distribution, but neglect of. Neglect of what? Is that the rest? Yeah. Okay. Employment, skills, and human capital. The solution: human rights and dignity, some faiths, holistic views of personhood and human potential, concepts of meaning and value of work relevant to the imbalance of overwork and unemployment, emphasis on the value of education as well as providers of education, nurturing a culture of wisdom beyond the value of capitalism, strengthening resilience in individuals and communities, and work against human trafficking. The problem: exploitation in the name of religion. And that is a problem with a lot of religions. It is failure to promote enabling behaviors and environments, restricting employment, education, and power by gender, caste, etc., age discrimination, neglect dignity of children, clericalism. It is so the irony that they say that the neglect dignity of children. Now they are using the example of sex abuse, but the left neglects their children, and the World Economic Forum is of the left, the extreme left. They neglect the dignity of children all the time when they are shouting at the top of their lungs that they should have the right to murder their babies. So when they talk about the dignity of children that are here and born, I can't believe them because they don't have dignity. They don't believe in dignity for all children. So nor do they have care about the dignity of the children. And as they're using the example, sex abuse of the children alive right now, because they're trying to sexualize them by taking them to drag queen story hour and drag shows and letting disgusting men with their genitals basically hanging out, shaking it in the 3-year-old girl's face, letting the children put dollar bills in their thongs. So spare me that you care about the dignity of children. You don't. The perspective. Like I'm a mama bear and I get so heated when it comes to talking about children and what they are trying to do to our kids. I have 4, 16, 13, 11, and 8. And it bothers me when they come after our kids. And it bothers me that more parents are not angry about them coming for our kids to completely destroy them and confuse them. It irritates me. So, if you're not going to fight for your children, then I will do it for you while I'm fighting for mine. The perspective. Some businesses are faith-based and may restrict employment to members. Absolutely. They have every right because they're faith-based. Networks may be closed to outsiders. Some faiths may discourage employment or limit job options. Environment and resource security. Solution: intergenerational and other long-term perspectives. Creation-oriented emphasis on human nature interdependence. holistic cosmic understanding, or the Dharmic faiths, some indigenous faiths, ability to motivate changes of lifestyle, including necessary sacrifice, and communitarian impact. The problem is the apocalyptic views of this world's future and a theocentrism which leads to fatalism. So, if you are a Christian and you read the Bible and you've read Revelation, then you know that there is like an apocalyptic world coming after the rapture. For 7.5 years on this earth, it is going to be apocalyptic, and it's going to be worse than the zombie movies and any of the other, apocalypse type movies like Mad Max. It's going to be so much worse than that. Guarantee you don't want to be here for it, which is why you should be taking things seriously about going to church, learning who God is, getting saved, living a life like that. Because if I'm wrong, I have wasted nothing of my life. But if you are wrong, you have lost everything, because then you die and go to hell. Okay, the perspective. Different views of nature, like organism, mechanism, warehouse of resources, creation, and okay, I hate these words. Anthropocentrism. Anthropocentrism. I don't even know what that means. What does that even mean? We're going to find out. It's the belief that human beings are the central or most important entity in the universe. The term can be used interchangeably with humanocentrism, and some refer to the concept as human supremacy or human exceptionalism. Oh, okay. Well, I do believe that. We are the supreme beings of the earth. Absolutely. Then we have food security and agriculture. The solution: feed the hungry as a core value, which Christians give to charities and conservatives in general give to charities far more than people on the left. Rituals of care in regard to the land, its cultivation, harvest, food production, and quote unquote sacred mills, whatever that means. Fasting as a reminder of the interdependence between humans and the rest of creation. Advocacy for global justice, and international aid. The problem is protectionism counteracts global justice, and spiritualization of quote unquote earthly matters as obstacle for development. And the perspective is animal rights. Do I think you should be abusive to animals just for the heck of it? No. But to kill them like cows and deer and pigs to eat, to sustain yourself, I don't have a problem with that. Resistance to gene modification and food regulations. So I don't know if they're saying that resistance to gene modification is an issue and that we shouldn't be, or that we should be resistant to that. I don't know. Then you have gender parity. So the solution is progressive communities, important role models, strong enabling networks for change, work against domestic violence, focus on women and children in local and international social work, and work with gender roles and gender justice. And I hate how we only talk about focus on women. What about focusing on the men who are displaced and ostracized because of, feminism? That would be the biggest reason why. So what about those people? Do they not deserve? Do the fathers not deserve to be included in that and have people fight for them and their rights? I mean, I would think that they do. That's a bit irritating. And important role models. Well, who do they mean? Do they mean the drag queens? Do they mean the transgenders that are claiming to be women, like the Dylan Mulvaney's of the world? Is that who they're talking about? I don't know who their role models are, and I don't trust them. So the problem is traditionalism and conservatism. Of course, that's the problem. We're always the problem, right? And patriarchal, slow changing structures. Now, if I could just say what patriarchal is, Okay, because most people just think that it means, men are at the head. But patriarchy is actually, it's not even that. Because you got to remember, there are women that are in power right now that have power positions that are higher than men. So, patriarchy is a social system in which positions of dominance and privilege are primarily held by men. But that's technically not true because it is a system of society or government controlled by men. Well, our society and government is not controlled by men. There are plenty of women in society with those positions and in government with those positions. And I would say the majority of our society is controlled by women these days. Except we're seeing that turn back around to where men actually are controlling the society because we bow to the men that pretend to be women and act like they really are women. And now they are dominating all the spaces. So I guess you could say that yes, we are a patriarchy in that sense, but not in the sense that they seem to think we are. The perspective is freedom of religion can help improve conditions for women. Women in America, in the West in general, have it pretty stinking good. And apparently they have it so good that they have to make up fake problems. So they have purpose in life. That's how good they have it here in America, especially. Future of health, the solution. Providers of healthcare, charitable trust, emergency response like Ebola, holistic concepts of health and healing, promoting healthy lifestyles, attention to existential health, religious communities engaged in aid work, prevention, education, advocacy, focus on sexual and reproductive health and rights, abortion, and other human rights. And, if this wasn't written in 2016, that would have been like COVID under the emergency response. The problem is violent resistance against certain policies, such as birth control and vaccinations. I don't see anybody really fighting violently against vaccinations and birth control up until, the Fauci ouchies. People were pretty compliant with getting vaccinated. And in fact, us, little peons down here, low on the totem pole, we were getting our kids every vaccine that we were told they had to get, while your upper elites weren't vaccinating their kids because what information did they have about these that we did not have, that we felt that it was necessary to be doing this like we were told by doctors, while the elites, your celebrities and all them don't vaccinate their kids. What's the reason for that? Are they trying to make our kids unhealthy? Because I can say that from the time that I was a child to my kids today, I have seen kids today that look the most unhealthy and sickly than they ever did when I was a kid, with all these new allergies that pop up, gluten allergies, peanut allergies, all of that. I never heard of that stuff when I was a kid. Maybe a peanut allergy. But I knew the other stuff I never heard of. And then, especially when my dad was a kid, it really wasn't like that. So it's like, what was the purpose? So I see why people are, resistant to do vaccinations. This will probably get kicked off of YouTube for that. Perspective. Views on sexual reproduction and human rights, women's rights, views of the human body, concepts of sin, guilt, and forgiveness. Okay. There is not one single right that a woman does, that a man has, that a woman doesn't also have. Men and women have all the same rights. And then women have a little bit more rights than that. Women have more rights than men, truly. Unless you're a man pretending to be a woman, then you have more rights than everybody. And the concepts of sin and guilt. Well, if you don't teach people about sin, how are they going to learn how they can be forgiven and get out of living a sinful life? It's because they don't want the true gospel being shared around the globe. They don't want the true gospel. They don't want people learning who Jesus is and getting saved. That is what they try to prevent. Future of the global financial system. So the solution is nurturing communities of trust, critique of inequities, ethical codex, and stewardship. The problem is supporting status quo and unjust financial systems, I'm assuming they mean capitalism, and romanticizing poverty. I don't know anybody who romanticizes poverty. I truly don't. But we don't know what true poverty is. We don't. Not even the poorest person in America understands what real poverty is. Their perspective is critical or negative use of possessions and wealth of faith groups. Well, I can tell you my church isn't wealthy. But yeah, you could take a look probably at the Southern Baptist Convention. They probably have a lot of money. Joel Osteen, he has tons of money. Kenneth Copeland, I mean, flies private jets that he owns. So I see a problem with that because they are preying on the vulnerable and the hopeless and then saying that God is going to give you what you want and what you ask. You just have to give me your money. That sickens me to no end. A future of the internet. The solution: experience in communication and building relationships, community organizing, concern to avoid harm, concern for equal access, and concern for integrity of persons. The problem is radicalization of virtual closed religious communities. I really don't know what they're talking about there, so I won't even comment. The perspective is resistance to trends and sudden changes, global transmission of certain values, critique. Not all that's possible should be realized. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Okay. And see, I don't know if they're disagreeing with that or if they're agreeing with that, but I do agree with that. International security. The solution: religious freedom is shown to be causally related to lower conflict and religion related violence. Faith groups often engage in peacemaking activities and have peace as a doctrinal component. Global networks allow bonds between faith groups across borders, providing potential what? Inter interlocutors? Interlocutors? What the heck is that word? For peace. I don't think I've ever seen that word. And I read a lot, but I don't think I've ever seen that. Let's see what it is. Y'all, we're getting a vocabulary lesson while we're at it. In linguistics, discourse analysis and related fields, and the person involved in the conversation or dialogue. Two or more people speaking to one another are each other's interlocutors. Wait. Oh, I said it right. Interlocutor. Okay. The problem is, religion can be a source of conflict and division, including sectarian and communal divisions. Terrorist groups sometimes use religious rhetoric and justifications for terror and secular religious conflict. I'm not going to point out who the major religious extremist terrorists are, but it does go hand in hand with 9/11. The perspective: religious traditions justify violence through doctrines such as just war theory and jihad, meaning struggle for righteousness. True Christians don't even believe in that. Like I said, if you're a true Christian, the only type of violence that you should be engaging in and that you believe that should be engaged in is defense of your family, your property, your country, things like that. International trade and investment. The solution: ethical investment with risk taking in order to stabilize and secure societies, trust mediated by faith groups, mediated, let me re-say that, trust mediated by faith groups, fair trade, faith groups monitoring agents in society, work with anti corruption standards, faith groups divesting from fossil fuels, and faith groups as actors in international aid. The problem: religious associations with business legitimizing unjust and or harmful practice. The perspective: philanthropy, religious communities as active investors and bypassing rule of law and the state. Last one: long-term investing infrastructure and development. The problem. No, the solution. I feel like we did this backwards. So let's do this. Let's do this perspective first. Religious communities as active investors, power of religious leaders, and poor coordination with the state. The problem is romanticizing poverty, legitimizing inequalities, and hostility to secular initiatives. The solution: religious organizations belong to the most sustainable and experienced, relief and developmental work, access to grassroots, even in remote areas, and purpose-driven investment. I feel like that sounded better. So this is just another article. Can religion make economic growth fair? More fair? I don't really care. But I wanted to read this part here about Christianity is shifting south. It says these changes are occurring as Christian populations are increasingly concentrated in the South, where the impact of poverty is more broadly felt. The share of the world's Christians living in Europe is expected to decline substantially between 2010 and 2050. Meanwhile, the share of the world's Christians living in sub-Saharan Africa is expected to grow significantly from about 24% of the world's Christians in 2010 to 38% in 2050. Yeah, and I wonder, is it because they're not subjected to all the ridiculous, progressive, disgusting stuff that our society is subjected to? The shift of Christianity's center of gravity to Africa means that the African experience will be a major factor in helping to shape the social and economic perspectives of global Christianity, and this process is already underway. There are more numbers of Anglican churches living in Africa than in England. The president of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, which directly addresses issues related to poverty, is Cardinal Peter Codwo Apia Turkson of Ghana. I probably butchered that. His council recently published a guide for business called Vocation of the Business Leader. On poverty, it states, quote, developments in the field of the bottom of the pyramid products and services, such as micro enterprises, microcredit, social enterprises, and social investment funds, have played an important role in addressing the needs of the poor. These innovations will not only help lift people from extreme poverty, but could spark their own creativity and entrepreneurship and contribute to launching a dynamic of development, end quote. Okay. So the faith factor in employment skills and human capital. Okay. And it talks about, the future of education, gender and work, blah, 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 blah. So it says that this report serves in two ways those engaged in addressing this challenge. By providing the comprehensive information on the talent base in each country, including information on education levels of the employed, unemployed, and the inactive members of the population, as well as the specific qualifications of the latest entrants to the workforce, and through the report's Human Capital Index, a tool for tracking how countries are developing and deploying their human capital over time. So taking faith into account, without question, the peoples of the world are overwhelmingly religious, and for the vast majority, their religious faith and convictions have a profound influence in shaping their views of themselves and their futures. Faith, religious faith, is for billions a powerful source and cornerstone for their sense of history and identity and community, which informs their 1. Sense of dignity and worth and meaning, 2. Identification of their gifts and talents and potential, 3. Attitudes toward education and work, 4. Moral and ethical convictions and practices, 5. Priorities for what they will sacrifice for what, 6. Definitions of well-being and success, and 7. Expectations and hopes for their children and their children's children. Faith matters, and people's faith matters to them. As we consider, then, the challenge of employment, skills, and human capital, we have to take faith into account. How people view and pursue education, how they regard work and its value, what their hopes are, and what they are willing to sacrifice to reach them. These are just a few of the factors powerfully influenced by faith that will affect how people will respond to efforts to provide education, skills training, and job opportunities. Okay. And then you have religious accommodations offered by organizations. You want to look at that, you can pause it. So what faith can contribute here, okay? A sense of personhood from which critical and creative thinking spring, an emphasis on community and cooperation, which are essential to effective educational contexts, a framework of duty and responsibility that validates the value of work and engenders effort, a conviction about rights and wrongs, that some things help and others hurt, a hope for final reward that gives direction and spurs motivation, a respect and search for wisdom, enriching the means and ends of education beyond the merely technical and instrumental. Okay. Now, there's a part when I find it But I wanted to look at this too. 4 reasons why climate change can't be solved without religion. It always goes back to climate change, right? So there's at least 4 good reasons for the inclusion of religious traditions in this work. First, historic religious traditions have a tried and tested cultural integrity, spiritual depth, and moral force which can greatly enhance secular approaches. Second, climate change is fundamentally a question of global justice. In religious traditions, the concern for justice tends to be central. It says here, the Abrahamic monotheisms have tended to be anthropocentric in their approach to justice. The Dharmic traditions of Asia and many indigenous religions complement this with a more holistic vision of the connectedness of all things. Together, they can work with secular traditions to develop visions of planetary justice. Just so you know, secular and religious, especially Christians, they cannot mix together like that. It does not work because Christians are supposed to be, we live in the world, but we're not of the world. We're separated. Third, religious traditions play a role in leadership. In many contexts, religious leaders, both formal, usually men, and informal, also women, exercise influence on the so called grassroots level as well as in national or international governance. And then, fourth, the dimensions of the challenge can invoke anxiety as well as paralysis. There is a need for a realistic hope that releases the powers of imagination and action humans are capable of. In other words, there is a need to frame narratives of hope and possibilities. Religious traditions have ample experience of combining short term perspectives with a long term perspective and compelling narratives. So to me, it sounds like they're listing like all the great things about religions, and then they're going to take that and they're going to shove their extreme leftist narrative into that and say it's a religion. That's really what it feels like. Okay, the faith factor and the global financial system. I think we're almost done because I'm not going through all of it. So if you want to read this one, but I'm looking for a specific one that listed something about Christians or conservatives in general. So religion holds women back, or does it? So I don't know what these graphs are. Government and social restrictions on religious freedom associated with gender inequality, and then governments and social restrictions on religious freedom associated with gender inequality among 25 countries with high government and social restrictor. Okay, if you want to read that, you can. But it says that religion is often seen as a barrier to gender parity. Stories abound of gender based violence done in the name of religion. As a result, in many cases, the issues of religion and gender parity are often dismissed as too complicated to address. There appears to be no way to unwind this rather complex multi institution. However, a critical factor overlooked in this conversation is religious freedom. Unless there is religious freedom, minority groups, including women, will not be at the table and their vital, productive, and creative voices will not be heard. Corporations and economies will suffer if they miss out on the contribution of women. But here's the problem: corporations are not the same as religions. So comparing the two like that, acting like because certain religions don't allow women to be in leadership positions, and that means corporations aren't allowing it. That's not true. They're not leaders in corporations. They're not CEOs and things like that because of the different choices that women make as opposed to men. Anyway, the denial of religious freedom contributes to gender inequality throughout the world. Extremist ideologies such as ISIS represent the complete loss of religious freedom, and when respect for diversity of religious beliefs and practices disappears, gender equality suffers. Well, we don't have gender equality. We just don't. Harassment more common in countries with government restrictions, it says. You have government restrictions. You have the social hostilities. 5 years that talks about the Pew study finds that the number of countries in which women have been harassed by individuals or groups for violating religious dress codes has increased in recent years. The latest year studies, such as social hostilities over religious attire, were found in 50 countries, or 25%, including Sudan. 5 years earlier, such incidents were reported in just 14 countries, or 7%. Faith, the internet, and improving the state of the world. Great. That's just bringing faith to the internet. Faith in international trade and investment. And you have faith leaders, a secret weapon in the fight against diseases. Okay. Where was that one that talked about Christians not, or conservatives not willing to change? Oh man. It was saying that like that was our problem, is because we aren't willing to change. Maybe I read over it and I just don't remember. Um I don't know, man. Can't believe I can't find that. That stinks, because that was something pretty interesting that they were talking about. It was just like it literally said that conservatives are unwilling to change. That was our problem. But I don't know where it's at. So, oh well. But yeah, I mean, you can go and read this for yourself, and if you come across it, you can see where it says that. Um, it may have said it in here somewhere, and I just forgot that I read it. Let me just look really quickly. Oh man, because I had a lot to say about that. Oh, I did. I was the first thing I read. Unwillingness to change. Good grief. My mind is all over the place. Truly, truly it is. It really is. Because this was last minute to jump on here and do this, because I came across this and I wanted to look at it, and show what they're using religion for, basically. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. I bet you my Rumble never went live, or maybe it did. There's 4 watching. Okay, well, huh? That's weird. Anyway, um, so yeah, I just wanted to go over that. I thought it was interesting, and I will link the. I'll put in the description the link where you can go and look at it and read it yourself if you want. Um, I'm probably going to do another live stream covering some other stuff. Um, I wanted to, I know that Sydney Watson was on Dr. Phil, and I wanted to go and watch some of those clips and just discuss some of the things that were said, not by Sydney, um, but by the whole conversation of the transgender movement. And I'd heard a few things in there that I really wanted to express my opinion on, and so I might do one of those at another day when I have more time, because I mean it's a big problem, if you ask me. The transgender movement, all of it is just, I don't know. I, I just get so bothered that more people don't seem to be, and maybe it's just because it's meant to feel like there's not more people, and that they're actually, I know there are more people that agree with me than don't on these issues, but I'm not hearing their voices. So I don't know if that's intentional, which I'm sure it is at some level. It's intentional to keep us separated, and that we can't, come together on things, because they're purposely dividing us that way. But also, if they're not speaking out because they're afraid of losing their job, being labeled bigots or transphobes, for whatever reason that they're choosing not to speak out. And I'm like, if you can't stand up for what's right on things like that, especially if you claim to be a Christian, then how do you stand up and defend your belief in God and the Bible as being a Christian? Because that is much harder to stand up for, because Christians have been persecuted since the dawn of time. So that's going to be harder for you to defend than defending that the ridiculousness of a man thinking he can be a woman. Truthfully, I mean, it's going to be so much harder. So I don't know. I feel like more people should be getting involved. I try to get my nephew involved all the time with politics, because it is his generation that is going to have to fix it. Period. The millennials have lost their minds. There are very few millennials, I feel like, that have normal thinking processes that are not easily susceptible to the lies and propaganda. And the boomers are just getting too old. So, and the Gen Xers, I mean, I guess some of them could. They're not as old, but I still think it is going to be the Gen Zers that are going to have to save this country. And it's going to have to come through Christian Gen Zers. Period. I think that's the only way that we turn this country around. And I don't know if it will turn around. I do know that the Bible says that if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and turn from their sin, okay, let me go get it, because I don't like misquoting the Bible. Second Chronicles 7:14. If no, where's King James? Okay. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. It's going to be Christian Gen Zers that is going to save this country. And like I said, it says that it can be healed. It says it can, but are we so far gone that, I really do feel like this is the end of days, truthfully. I believe Jesus is going to come back any day. It could be right now, it could be tomorrow, but I mean, it could be 100 years from now. I don't know, because nobody knows, but I know we're getting closer. And so while the Bible does say that, we can do that and then he'll heal our land, are we past that point? Because it is only Christians that are going to be able to do that. That's what a revival is. It's Christians coming together and rededicating themselves to living a life for God and doing the right thing and praying. And then things break out and things get better. So that's my 2 cents. I thought it was interesting, and that's why I wanted to go over it, because I don't like it when people like to use religion to shove their narrative, and they are misrepresenting, the Bible or God and things like that. I don't like that, and I feel like that's what the WEF is doing, is they are trying to take religious traditions, especially Christianity, because that's the one they hate the most, the true word of God, the true Bible. They hate that. And this is why that King James Bible, this is why they use the King James to misinterpret scriptures and rewrite them to take rid of anything that's against homosexuality. And the reason they use the King James is because they know deep down it's written on their heart. God says that it's, the truth is written on everybody's heart. This is why you can come to know it. So deep down, they know that that's the true word of God. And that is why they use that one to go and pervert, rather than like the NIV, or like here, the NLT, or you have, the NASB, you have the Message Bible, you have the American Standard Version, you have the English Standard Version, 2016, you have your Amplified Bible, you have the Living Translation Bible. You have so many different kinds of Bibles, which are perversions. And they didn't use that Bible specifically. They used the King James specifically because they know all the other ones are not the true word of God. And they hate God so much because he convicts them of the sinful life that they're living that they had to go and pervert the true word of God. And you know what? I know this went off on a little tangent of what else, but I mean, it is religious. So, regardless, I would not want to be those people. They stayed anonymous. I can understand why they stayed anonymous for doing that to the Bible. I would not want to be those people standing in front of God on Judgment Day. No way. I've done some questionable things in my past. I've done sinful things. I'm not perfect, but to do what they did, even if I wasn't a Christian, I don't think I would ever be brave enough to mock God or blaspheme him, even if I wasn't a Christian. No way. I would not want to be those people. Absolutely not. Anyway, that's it. That's all I want to talk about. I'm gonna go. My throat hurts. My mouth is so dry. My throat is getting sore. Um, I was sick. I left work early on Thursday. Apparently I had vertigo and was really dehydrated, and so they gave me some medicine, and they hydrated me at the hospital. They did blood work. Everything came back fine. I'm tad low on potassium. I need to start taking better care of myself. Quit running myself ragged. But I've just been struggling with my mouth being really dry and my throat being sore, and I don't know if it's the medicine that's doing that. Probably. So I shouldn't talk as much as I do, but I like to talk. Anyway, that's it. I'm gonna get off. I promise. Really, just pray for me if you don't mind. For me to feel better and to get back to good health and get rid of this dizziness because it's terrible. But I've looked at this computer this whole time and didn't get dizzy once. So praise the Lord. Then I can go to work and actually do my job. So y'all have a good rest of your day and God bless. I need to end the streaming. How do I end the Rumble stream?